Hey, my name is Elliot Carter and I'm 27 years old. I've been working as an IT engineer at a creative design firm in New York for just under a year now. The office is in a trendy building in Midtown Manhattan surrounded by towering skyscrapers and the constant hum of the city. It's the kind of place where every room bursts with color. Posters of bold artwork on the walls, sketchbooks scattered on desks, and quirky gadgets everywhere. But me? I'm the guy who fades into the background. People only notice me when the Wi-Fi lags, a computer freezes, or the printer spits out error messages. Otherwise, I'm invisible, tucked away in the server room, fixing things quietly. My direct boss is Madeline Roy, the head of the creative department. She's 34, single, and the kind of woman who turns heads without trying. Sharp, confident, with dark wavy hair that she often ties back in a loose bun, and eyes that seem to see right through you. She's always dressed impeccably, tailored blazers over silk blouses, or fitted dresses that hug her figure just right. But she's professional to a fault. Nice, sure. She brings in donuts for the team sometimes, and she's got this way of motivating people with a smile. I've helped her out a few times outside work hours, like fixing her home network once when she mentioned it in passing, or troubleshooting her laptop over a quick call. Nothing more than that, though. She always thanks me politely with that same distant smile. It was a Thursday evening when everything changed. The office had cleared out early. Most people were heading home or to happy hour spots nearby. I was wrapping up my weekly backup checklist, staring at lines of code on my screen in the dim light of my cubicle. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, and outside the windows, the city lights were starting to flicker on against the darkening sky. That's when the desk phone rang. I picked it up and Madeline's voice came through, smooth but urgent. Elliot, my computer's frozen solid. I have files for tomorrow's meeting that aren't sent yet. Can you come up and take a look? Sure thing, I said, grabbing my laptop and toolkit. Her office was on the upper floor, a corner space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Hudson River. I knocked lightly and pushed the door open. The room was bathed in the warm glow of her desk lamp, casting long shadows across the cluttered desk piled with design mock-ups and coffee mugs. Madeline was still seated, rubbing her temple lightly, looking a bit worn out from the day. Thanks for coming so quickly, she said, gesturing to her keyboard. I was cleaning up some drives and suddenly everything vanished. Now it's just stuck. I nodded and logged in with my admin credentials, pulling up the system diagnostics. The issue seemed straightforward, a corrupted temp file or something blocking the processes. As I dug deeper, checking the drives for recoverable data, I spotted a folder on her D drive labeled Backup 2024. Thinking it might hold the missing work files, I clicked it open without a second thought. What popped up wasn't spreadsheets or design docs. It was a collection of personal photos. At first, they seemed innocent enough. Family shots from what looked like a holiday gathering, Madeline smiling with relatives at a backyard barbecue somewhere upstate. Then there were selfies from her yoga sessions, her in athletic wear, posing in downward dog with the city skyline in the background. A few from an art studio, paint smudges on her cheeks as she held a brush. But as the thumbnails loaded, the tone shifted. There were portraits, professional-looking ones, where she was alone, dressed elegantly in evening gowns, her expression poised and sophisticated, like she was at a gala in the Met. Deeper in, the images got more personal. One showed her in an oversized men's shirt, hair tousled as if she'd just woken up, lips slightly smudged with lipstick, gazing directly at the camera with a raw, unguarded look. Another was her in front of a mirror, the shirt unbuttoned just enough to hint at vulnerability, her eyes intense and alive. No nudity or anything explicit, but intimate, capturing moments of solitude, confidence, and a side of her I'd never imagined. Every photo after the family ones featured her alone. No partners, no friends, just Madeline in her most authentic self. I froze, realizing I'd stumbled into something private. My cursor hovered over the close button, but before I could click, Madeline returned to the desk with a fresh cup of tea in hand. She glanced at the screen and for a split second, her eyes widened. Then she set the cup down slowly, crossing her arms and tilting her head slightly. Have you seen all the photos, Elliot? She asked, her voice steady, not angry, but direct. Our eyes met and the room felt smaller, the hum of the computer fan suddenly louder. I stammered, heat rushing to my face. I'm so sorry. I thought it was work data. I was just trying to recover the files. I didn't mean to. She held up a hand, cutting me off gently. She didn't yell or demand I leave. Instead, she just stood there, studying me for what felt like an eternity. Then she exhaled softly. It's okay. I just hope you don't think anything weird after seeing them. The silence stretched, thick with unspoken tension. I shifted uncomfortably, but she didn't look away. Finally, she asked, her tone curious rather than accusatory. What do you think of me? I swallowed hard, my mind racing. You're beautiful. She turned away slightly, a faint smile tugging at her lips, part embarrassed, part resigned, but with a hint of relief. Neither of us said another word. The only sounds were the whir of the fan and my heart pounding in my ears. And right then, I knew I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross. The next morning, I showed up at the office earlier than usual, my stomach twisting in knots. I half expected HR to be waiting at my desk with a pink slip, or worse, Madeline to avoid eye contact altogether. The elevator ride up felt endless, the soft ding echoing in my head like a warning. But when I stepped into the bullpen, everything looked normal. The hum of printers, the chatter of early birds grabbing coffee from the kitchenette, the faint scent of fresh bagels someone had brought in. Madeline was already in her office, visible through the glass walls as she typed away at her keyboard. She glanced up when I passed by on my way to the server room, and to my surprise, she gave a quick nod and a neutral smile. No glare, no awkwardness. It was like nothing had happened. I exhaled a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding and dove into my routine tasks, trying to convince myself it was all fine. But by mid-morning, the emails started rolling in. The first one was from Madeline. Elliot, could you run a full audit on the internal storage systems? We need to ensure everything's optimized before the quarterly review. It seemed straightforward, but as I dug in, I realized it meant combing through terabytes of data. Old project files, archived designs, even legacy servers from before I joined. It wasn't just busy work, it required cross-referencing logs and flagging vulnerabilities. I spent the afternoon buried in it, my screen filled with lines of code and error reports. The next day brought more. Standardize the data history from the past 3 years, her email read. Rerun the logs on all servers and document any inconsistencies. Deadline, end of the week. I blinked at the screen, calculating the hours. This was stuff I'd never touched before, sensitive access levels that usually required sign-off from higher-ups. I nodded to myself and got to it, but by evening, I was still at my desk while the office emptied out. The city lights twinkled outside, and the only sound was the occasional ping of my computer processing files. That's when I noticed the pattern. Madeline was piling on the tasks, each one more intensive than the last. Training sessions for the design team on new security protocols? Assigned to me. Overhauling the wireless device inventory? Me again. Deadlines were tight, often requiring overtime. I'd pack up my laptop and continue at home in my small apartment in Brooklyn, the glow of the screen illuminating my living room as I munched on takeout pizza. Part of me wondered if this was her way of pushing me out, payback for stumbling into her private world. Yet, she was always there in subtle ways. During one late afternoon as I wrestled with a stubborn server glitch, she appeared at my cubicle with a small box. "Donut run for the team," she said casually, placing it on my desk. But inside was just one, a glazed one, my favorite from the spot down the block. No note, no fanfare. I knew it was from her. She'd seen me grab one during a team meeting once. I ate it slowly, the sweetness cutting through my fatigue, wondering if it was a peace offering or just coincidence. The whispers started soon after. As I walked past the design team's open workspace one day, I caught snippets of conversation. "Roy's really piling it on Elliot," someone murmured. "Heard the last IT guy quit after a month of that." Another voice chuckled softly. "Wonder how long he'll last." I pretended not to hear, but it stung. Was Madeline testing me to my breaking point? Or was there something else? The real turning point came on a rainy Tuesday evening. I'd just wrapped up a marathon session debugging the network when my phone buzzed. An email from Madeline. "Elliot, my kitchen faucet is leaking badly. Any chance you could swing by after work?" I know it's not office-related, but you're the only one I trust with this stuff. I stared at the message, rain pattering against the window. It felt personal, echoing that night in her office. Without overthinking, I replied, "On my way." Her apartment was in a sleek building in Chelsea, a short subway ride away. The doorman nodded me up, and when she opened the door, she was in casual mode, yoga pants and a loose sweater, her hair down for once. The place was cozy, not flashy. Exposed brick walls, a bookshelf crammed with art books and novels, a faint scent of vanilla from a candle on the coffee table. She led me to the kitchen, where water dripped steadily from the faucet into the sink. As I knelt under the counter with my tools, ones I'd grabbed from my bag, she leaned against the island, watching. "Thanks for this. I hate calling maintenance for little things." I nodded, twisting a wrench to tighten the seal. We chatted lightly about the weather, the latest office gossip, but then she shifted. "It's a lot of pressure, right, Elliot? All the extra work I've been giving you. Can you handle it?" I paused, wiping my hands on a rag, and looked up at her. Her eyes were steady, searching. "Yeah, it's tough, but I'll keep going no matter how rough it gets." She crossed her arms, a small smile breaking through, the first genuine one since that night. "Good. Trust sometimes starts with pushing limits." I finished the repair, tested the faucet, and as I packed up, she handed me a cup of herbal tea. We sat at her small dining table for a moment, the rain still drumming outside. No mention of the photos, no awkwardness. But in that quiet, I felt a shift. That night, I realized she wasn't trying to break me. She was building me. 3 months had flown by since that awkward night in Madeline's office, but the workload hadn't let up. If anything, it intensified. I found myself buried deeper in the systems, optimizing firewalls, migrating old data to cloud servers, and even leading impromptu workshops for the design team on cybersecurity best practices. The office buzzed with its usual creative energy, designers sketching on whiteboards, the scent of fresh coffee from the break room, the distant hum of printers churning out mock-ups. But for me, it was a grind. Still, I pushed through, telling myself it was all part of proving I belonged here. Then came the big news. During our weekly all-hands meeting in the conference room, a sleek space with panoramic views of the bustling streets below, our CEO announced a major partnership with an international client, a high-end fashion brand based in Europe. The project involved overhauling our entire data infrastructure to handle their secure file sharing, real-time collaboration tools, and enhanced encryption for sensitive designs. It was a game-changer for the company, potentially bringing in millions in revenue. Excitement rippled high through the room, but my heart sank when the details unfolded. Tight timelines, complex integrations, and zero room for error. Madeline, standing at the front in a crisp navy blazer over a white blouse, her hair pulled back in that signature bun, took the floor to outline the creative side. She spoke with her usual poise, gesturing to the projected slides that showed timelines and deliverables. Then, as the discussion shifted to the technical backbone, she paused and scanned the room. "For the IT lead on this," she said calmly, "I'm assigning Elliot Carter." The room went silent. I felt every eye turn toward me, sitting in the back with my notebook. A few murmurs broke out, subtle, but I caught them. Mark, the senior IT manager who'd been with the firm for 5 years, cleared his throat. "Madeline, Elliot's only been here a year. This is high-stakes stuff. Maybe someone with more experience?" She cut him off smoothly, her voice firm but not sharp. "I appreciate the concern, Mark, but Elliot's my choice. He's handled every task I've thrown at him flawlessly. If anyone has issues, bring them to me directly." She held his gaze until he nodded reluctantly, then moved on as if it were settled. I sat there, pulse racing, a mix of terror and exhilaration washing over me. Why me? I wasn't the most seasoned guy in the department. Mark had certifications I could only dream of, and the other techs had years on me. But as the meeting wrapped and people filed out, Madeline caught my eye and gave a subtle nod. It was like she was saying, "You've got this," or maybe, "Don't let me down." The next few weeks were a blur of intensity. I dove headfirst into the project, mapping out the infrastructure upgrades, migrating to a hybrid cloud setup with AWS, implementing multi-factor authentication across all devices, and stress testing the servers for load during peak collaboration hours. Days blurred into nights. I'd start at 8 a.m. with a steaming cup of office coffee, poring over diagrams on my dual monitors, and end up leaving after 10 p.m., the city lights a glittering distraction outside. My apartment became a makeshift war room, laptop on the kitchen table, notes scribbled on napkins, takeout containers piling up. Madeline was there in the background, her support quiet but steady. She'd drop by my cubicle during lunch with a casual, "How's it coming?" and listen intently as I explained the latest hurdle. Once, after a particularly grueling day wrestling with API integrations, I found a fresh muffin on my desk. No note, but I recognized the bakery wrapper from the place she frequented. Her emails came at odd hours too. "Don't forget to take breaks," or "let me know if you need resources." It wasn't overt, but it kept me going, reminding me she was invested in my success. The team dynamics shifted too. Mark kept his distance at first, but eventually he swung by with questions about the new encryption protocols. The designers, who used to joke about my invisibility, now included me in their brainstorming sessions, valuing my input on how tech could enhance their workflows. But the pressure mounted. Sleepless nights became routine. I'd wake up at 3 a.m. with code snippets running through my head, jotting ideas on my phone before drifting off again. The real crisis hit 2 days before the final demo. As I ran a routine check on the backup systems, redundant servers housed in our off-site data center in New Jersey, I spotted an anomaly. Digging deeper, my stomach dropped. A vulnerability in the legacy code. It was a glitch from an old patch, something that had slipped through previous audits. With the right exploit, anyone could breach the firewall and wipe out terabytes of data. The client would never sign off if this went live. Worse, it could tank the entire deal. Panic set in. I tried quick fixes, rebooting nodes, rerunning scripts, but nothing stuck. The clock ticked. The demo was scheduled for 10 a.m. sharp with the client's execs flying in from Paris. I thought about calling Mark, but pride and that lingering sense of proving myself to Madeline stopped me. Instead, I hunkered down. I pulled an all-nighter in the office, the empty hallways echoing with my keystrokes. I rewrote the core module from scratch, cross-referencing documentation online and even texting an old college buddy in Chicago at 4 a.m. for a code review. He grumbled but helped, spotting a loop error I'd missed. By dawn, as the first rays of sun filtered through the blinds, I ran the final tests. It held. Data flowed securely, backups synced without a hitch. Exhausted but triumphant, I compiled the report and emailed it to Madeline with minutes to spare. She replied instantly. "Impressive. See you in the meeting." The demo went off without a flaw. In the boardroom, with its polished oak table and views of Central Park in the distance, I presented the upgraded system. Smooth integrations, zero latency, ironclad security. The client's team nodded approvingly, asking pointed questions that I answered confidently. Our CEO shook my hand afterward, beaming. "Outstanding work, Elliot. This seals the deal." As the room cleared, Madeline approached, her expression one of quiet pride. She placed a hand lightly on my shoulder, the first physical contact since that night. "Great job," she said softly. I knew you'd pull through." For the first time, I felt like I wasn't just her employee. I was someone she believed in. After the project's success, things at the office shifted in ways I hadn't anticipated. The CEO's handshake lingered in my mind, but more than that, the promotion buzz started almost immediately. By the end of the week, Mark pulled me aside in the break room, its familiar scent of microwaved lunches and stale coffee hanging in the air, and mentioned that Madeline had put my name forward for managing a small IT team. "She's got faith in you, kid," he said, clapping me on the back with a grudging smile. It wasn't just lip service. The paperwork came through soon after, and suddenly I had my own set of direct reports. 2 junior techs who'd been floating between departments. The team dynamics changed too. The designers who once barely acknowledged me beyond a quick "fix this" now looped me into their creative huddles. Tina, the chatty one from the group who'd whispered about me before, swung by my new desk, a slightly larger cubicle with a better view of the bustling street below, with a stack of sketches. "Elliot, can you check if our new collab tool handles high-res files without crashing? You're the expert now." I nodded, feeling a surge of confidence I hadn't known before. Even Mark deferred to me on a few calls asking for my take on server upgrades. It was like I'd stepped out of the shadows all because Madeline had thrown me into the fire and watched me emerge unscathed. Madeline herself seemed different around me. No longer the distant boss with clipped emails and professional nods, she started weaving me into her orbit more casually. During meetings in the glass-walled conference room, with its long table cluttered with laptops and coffee cups, she'd toss a light tease my way. "Elliot, if you can wrangle our ancient servers, surely you can handle this client's impossible deadline." The room would chuckle, and I'd fire back with a grin, feeling the ease between us grow. After hours, she'd invite me to stick around for a quick coffee in the lounge area, where we'd sit on the worn leather couches overlooking the evening traffic. We'd talk shop at first, design trends, tech integrations, but it always drifted to something more personal, like her favorite art exhibits at MoMA or my weekend hikes upstate. One Friday, the company threw a casual happy hour to celebrate the partnership's official signing. The rooftop terrace was decked out with string lights, twinkling against the Manhattan skyline, cool autumn air carrying the scent of catered appetizers, mini sliders, cheese platters, and craft beers on ice. Music played softly from a portable speaker, and colleagues mingled in clusters, laughing over inside jokes. Madeline was in her element, circulating with a glass of wine, her laughter cutting through the chatter. I hung back near the railing, nursing a beer and chatting with Tina about an upcoming software update. As the night wound down and people started heading out, calling Ubers or walking to the subway, Madeline caught my eye across the crowd. "Elliot, mind helping me tidy up? These lights won't pack themselves." I nodded, and soon it was just the two of us on the dimly lit terrace, the city humming far below. We worked in companionable silence at first, folding chairs, stacking plates, and coiling extension cords. The wind picked up, rustling the leftover napkins, and the string lights swayed gently overhead. Once everything was cleared, she poured us each a final glass of wine from the remaining bottle and leaned against the railing beside me. The view was stunning. Empire State Building glowing in the distance, rivers of taillights snaking through the streets. She took a sip, then turned to me, her expression softening in the low light. "Elliot, you saw a lot of me that night," she said quietly, her voice carrying over the faint city noise. "Those photos. I wasn't testing you to punish you for stumbling on them. I needed to know if you could handle more than just work, if you were someone I could rely on beyond the office." I set my glass down, meeting her gaze. The vulnerability in her eyes caught me off guard, a far cry from the composed leader I knew. "I messed up by looking," I admitted, "but I respect you, your privacy, your work, everything. You've pushed me, and yeah, it was hard, but it made me better." She smiled then, a real one that reached her eyes, not the polite version she used in meetings. "That's why I chose to trust you. Some things we only share with people we want to keep close. Closer than just colleagues." The words hung between us, charged with meaning. Before I could respond, she stepped forward, closing the small distance. Her hand brushed my arm lightly, and then she leaned in, pressing a soft kiss to my cheek. It was brief, warm, her lips lingering just a second longer than a friendly peck. The scent of her perfume, something floral and subtle, filled the air, and my heart stuttered. She pulled back, her eyes searching mine for a moment, then turned away as if nothing had happened, picking up a stray napkin and tossing it into the trash bag. We finished the cleanup without another word about it, the silence comfortable but electric. As we rode the elevator down together, the hum of the machinery the only sound, I replayed the moment in my head. Her kiss wasn't just a kiss, it was a promise that we'd crossed into something real. In the weeks following that rooftop kiss, Madeline and I slipped into a rhythm that felt both new and inevitable. It wasn't dramatic, no grand declarations or stolen moments in the supply closet. Instead, it started small, like most real things do. We'd linger after meetings, grabbing coffee from the corner cafe near the office where the baristas knew her order by heart, black with a splash of almond milk. We'd talk about everything and nothing. The latest exhibit at the Whitney, her frustration with a stubborn client, my half-baked plans to run a marathon someday. Those conversations flowed easily without the weight of our roles hanging over us. Outside work, it deepened. One Saturday, she texted me about a tennis match at a public court in Central Park. "Bring your racket if you have one," she wrote. I showed up in old sneakers and shorts, feeling a bit out of place among the weekend warriors. But she was there in athletic gear, her hair in a ponytail, laughing as she warmed up. We played doubles with a couple of her friends from an art group, casual sets that left us both sweaty and breathless. Afterward, we grabbed smoothies from a nearby vendor, sitting on a bench as joggers and dog walkers passed by. "You're better than you let on," she teased, nudging my shoulder. It was light, friendly, but her eyes held that same warmth from the rooftop. We started doing more together. Dinners at quiet spots in the village, Italian bistros with candlelit tables, where we'd split pasta and debate the merits of abstract art versus realism. Movie nights at her apartment, curled up on her couch with popcorn, watching indie films she'd recommend from festivals she'd attended. Her place felt like an extension of her. Minimalist furniture, shelves lined with design books, and a few personal sketches she'd drawn herself, the faint hum of the city filtering through the windows. These weren't dates, not officially, we never labeled them, but they built a bond that went beyond boss and employee. The office noticed, of course. Whispers evolved into knowing smiles. Tina from design would raise an eyebrow when we'd walk in together after lunch, or Mark would joke during team huddles. Elliot's turning into Roy's right-hand man, literally. No one said anything outright negative. If anything, it seemed to humanize Madeline in their eyes. She was still the sharp leader in blazers and heels, commanding rooms with ease, but now there was a softer edge when she interacted with me. We'd collaborate seamlessly on projects, her creative vision meshing with my technical fixes, and the results spoke for themselves. The team thrived, and any initial skepticism faded. It all culminated at her birthday party, a low-key gathering she threw at a rooftop lounge in Chelsea. The venue was intimate. String lights draped overhead, a jazz playlist humming in the background, trays of appetizers circulating among about 24 guests, colleagues, old friends from her art school days, even a cousin from Boston. Madeline looked radiant in a simple black dress that hugged her figure, her hair loose and wavy for once. I arrived with a small gift, a framed print from a local gallery, something abstract that reminded me of her sketches. The night unfolded with laughter and toasts, the city skyline sparkling like a backdrop. As the evening wound down, Madeline stood at the center, glass in hand, thanking everyone for coming. Then her eyes found mine. "And Elliot," she said, her voice steady but warm. "Thank you for not walking away. Even when you saw more than you bargained for, more than just the boss. You've stuck around through the chaos, and that means everything." The room chuckled lightly, assuming it was about the project deadlines, but I knew the layers beneath her words. I stepped forward, the weight of the moment settling in my chest. Taking her hand gently, our fingers intertwining for the first time in front of others, I met her gaze. "I stayed because I saw a different Madeline," I said softly, my voice carrying over the quiet hum. "One worth standing by, not just for work, but for everything else." She squeezed my hand, her eyes glistening just a bit under the lights. Then, without pulling away, she leaned her head against my shoulder for a brief moment, whispering so only I could hear, "Some secrets, when shared with the right person, become the start of something new." The party continued, but that exchange lingered. No one made a fuss. Tina just smiled knowingly, and Mark raised his glass in a silent toast. From there, our connection grew organically, without rush or labels. We didn't hide it. We didn't need to. Colleagues adapted, clients noticed the synergy in our pitches, and our shared moments, whether debating code over lunch or wandering galleries on weekends, felt effortless. What this taught me was that trust isn't given lightly. It's earned through fire. Madeline had pushed me, not out of spite, but to see if I could handle her world, the vulnerabilities behind the poised exterior. And in return, I'd shown her I could. Our bond wasn't born from perfection. It started with a mistake, a glimpse into the private, and bloomed into something real. Standing on her balcony one crisp evening, the Hudson River glittering below, her hand in mine, as we watched the city pulse with life, I knew we'd found our way. No more hiding, no more questions. Just us, moving forward together.